that the Rebbe explains a part of the Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, section 14. Ice 14 would be this year's cycle of the 20 ice years of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer Basel Legani, that he started giving out for Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud, and the Rebbe would explain, as we've mentioned many times, every year another section of the Maimer. In Tavshin Mem Daled, 1984, the Rebbe explained chapter 14, which is also the same chapter that we would hear from the Rebbe in Tavshin Pei Daled. So therefore, we're going to learn the Maimer from Shabbos Parsha B'Shalach Yud Shvat Tavshin Mem Daled. And as the Rebbe's style is, the Rebbe first summarizes, while also adding some flavor to the beginning of the Basel Legani until he reaches chapter 14. Then he goes into the chapter of this year, chapter 14. So here we're going to review the first 13 chapters, starting now. Basel Legani Achoisi Kala, the Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe begins with the pasuk in Shir HaShirim, I've come to my garden, my sister, my bride. It's referring, Hashem is talking to his bride, the Jewish people, in Shir HaShirim, and he's speaking about by Matan Torah, by the building of the Mishkan. Hashem said, I have come to my garden. This world is my garden, and now finally by Matan Torah and by the building of the Mishkan, I've come to my garden. Maybe just my father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the one whose yahrzeit it is, brings the Maimer with this title, that was given by him for his day of passing and his day of celebration, because the Frierdiker Rebbe used to give out in those years, in the final years, he wasn't able to say the Mamorim, he had difficulty speaking, so he used to give out Mamorim to be studied for certain auspicious dates. So he gave out the first section of the first part of the 20 sections he gave out for Shabbos Yud Shvat, Tavshin Yud, the very Shabbos that he would pass away. It's brought down the Medrash Rabbah, Legani. Why does it say to my garden? That Hashem said, I came to my garden. It should have said, I came to a garden. That coming down to this earth, it came to a garden. Why is it called Legani? Lignuni. To my special place, my unique place that I have, that I join with the Yidden. To the place that I was there primarily initially. What does that mean? That Hashem returned to this place that he was there initially. The Iker Shechina B'Tachtonim, saw that the main place of the Shechina was down here below. By day Shiva in Yom HaBilti, through the 7 unwanted things, through the negative things that occurred in this world, beginning from the sin of Deit Hadas and other sins, every single sin caused the Eibishter to ascend and leave this world. The Shechina departed from below to above, until he came to the 7th firmament, the 7th heaven, totally removed from this world. And afterwards arose 7 tzaddikim, Maschal Avram Avinu, beginning from Avram Avinu. Echad Avram was known as one was Avram. And they brought down the Shechina from above to below, until Moshe Rabbeinu came, that he is the 7th. And all the 7ths are favored and has a special place. And the Medrash that says Chol Hashvi and Chavivin brings different examples. The 7th day of the week of Shabbos, the 7th year is Shemitah, 7 times 7 is the Yovel, comes after 7 times 7, brings different examples of how the number 7 has very special and favored status in Yiddishkeit. So the same thing, Moshe Rabbeinu is the 7th, and therefore he had the special honor of Vayirida Lamata Ba'aretz. He brought the Shechina down here below on this earth. In this low world, that there's no world lower than it. At the drawing down the Shechina down here below through Moshe, was primarily and the revealed way in the making of the Mishkan. Like it says in the pasuk, they shall make for me a sanctuary, and I shall dwell amongst them. That was the command of Hashem to build the Mishkan, and that building of the Mishkan would result in Hashem's Shechina being down here. V'shechanti b'soicham, hamshachas ikar Shechina v'shechanti b'Mishkan agashmi. The drawing down the main part of Shechina. I shall rest in the physical Mishkan. B'shloisha asar chamisha asar dvarim agashmi shemehem nasa Mishkan. By the 13 or 15 items of which the Mishkan was made, because there's a difference of opinion when it says, it enumerates all the different items with which one makes the Mishkan: gold, silver, copper, etc., etc. So there's different ways of counting it. There's 15 objects, 13 objects. B'toicham kipshutai, literally in those items, in the physicality of the world, made up of those 15 or 13 items. So, Vaideza Nifal, through Hashem coming down into the physical Mishkan that uses physical items, so through that it becomes affected. Through that is affected that I shall dwell amongst them in the plural. In the plural, we know the Chazal teaches us within each and every Yid. So the Mishkan is a vehicle and a channel through which Hashem comes down to dwell not only in the physical Mishkan made of these 15, 13 items, but in every single Yid as an individual. This is also the meaning of another pasuk that it says, "Tzadikim yirshu aretz, tzadikim will inherit the earth, v'yishknu la'ad olah, and they will rest forever upon it." That's the literal translation of the pasuk, but the Medrash plays around with it, and they say that what's it mean, or the Maimer elaborates on it in a midrashic way. What does it mean? V'yishkinu la'ad olah doesn't mean like the literal meaning is that they will live and rest forever upon the earth, but it means, not that doesn't mean that, but in a deeper sense it means there's a level called the everlasting one, the level of Ad. And V'yishkenu means they draw down. Not they, the tzaddikim, will live, but V'yishkenu la'ad, they will draw down the everlasting one, Hashem, upon the earth. The avodah of tzaddikim is lahashkin or lahamshich as Shechina, to make rest and to draw down the Shechina, which the Shechina is known b'chinas shoichin ad morim v'kodesh, the one who dwells everlasting, exalted and holy. So here we see in this pasuk the connection between the word ad as v'yishkinu la'ad and the Shechina that we're talking about, that it's resting. So we see that Hashem is called the shoichin ad morim v'kodesh. So that's v'yishkinu la'ad. They make the everlasting one rest, lamata ba'aretz, down here below the earth, aleha, upon it. And also the simple meaning of la'ad, ba'ofen shel la'ad, that they make the Shechina rest down here in a way of an everlasting way, ba'ofen nitzchi, in an everlasting way. Why is that so? V'hainum, the fisha hamshachi ayidei avodah the Torah mitzvahs, because the Hamshacha comes about through the avodah of Torah mitzvahs. V'atoida nitzchis, in the Torah is everlasting. Avaya yim lech loylam voed, so that Hashem will reign forever. This everlasting aspect of Hashem being in this world began and begins from the drawing down of the Shechina and the Mishkan that Moshe Rabbeinu made. Shekol Ma'asidei Moshe Nitzchim, that all the actions of the hands of Moshe are everlasting. So therefore the Mishkan has always survived, even though the Beis Hamikdashes were destroyed. But it says the Mishkan that Moshe made is hidden away, and because it always exists, because Moshe Rabbeinu's handiwork is everlasting. So we see again the everlasting nature of this v'yishkenu, of the fact that tzaddikim brings the Shechina down here on this world. Ois Beis, line 14. According to what the Chazal teach on the pasuk, that it's an awesome plot against people, which is used to this pasuk. It's used to explain that Hashem really schemed the plot to have Adam Arishon fall through with the Chet Hadas. Hashem wanted to have the benefit of tshuva and so on. Therefore, made it that way that it was almost unavoidable for Adam Arishon to fall through with this. And the Rebbe expands it. It's not just the Chet Hadas, but everything resulting from that. All the other negative things that happened, that because of that the Shekhinah ascended. So the Rebbe says in line 15, moving, it's understood, the 7 unwanted things, Maskom Chet Hadas, beginning from the sin of the Hadas, Vasiluch Shenas Al Yodam, and the ascent of the Shekhinah from this world that occurred through those sins, they were initially part of Hashem's intention. What does that mean? That this descent, meaning that the world descended, we lost the Shekhinah here in this world, the Shekhinah left this world, was for the sake of an ascent that afterwards we'll get to a higher level of Shekhinah. So that the drawing down of the primary Shekhinah down here below will be through the avodah of Yidden who are called and referred to in Basi Legani. They're referred to by Hashem as Achoisi Kala, my sister, my bride. In other words, when Hashem was initially here in this world before the Chet Hadas, it was not done through human intervention. It was done by Hashem. But Hashem wanted something greater. He wanted it to be because of our avodah. So therefore, he arranged for things to take place where the Shekhinah will eventually leave, and then we'll have a greater thing that we should be the ones to bring the Shekhinah down. Because the drawing down of the primary Shekhinah down here below, through the avoid of Yidden, is much higher than the Shekhinah the way it was in this world on its own at the beginning of creation. How come? Why is the level higher than if we would have just let it be the way it was at the beginning of creation and not had all the sins and so on? The reason for this is since that which is drawn down after an ascent, after departure, that's what's causing that to come down. It's like the Frierdiker Rebbe emphasized over in the Maimer, it's through the transformation of darkness to light. When we do Iskafia and Ishapcha, the Frierdiker Rebbe says in that Maimer, when we sublimate the Klippa and transform the Klippa, we are turning over darkness to light. And then, when the darkness is transformed to light, so then there becomes an increase in the light, and the quality of the light is so much greater, as the Rebbe always brings, that the powerfulness of light is when it's derived out of darkness. So therefore, it's a more greater elevation and darga of the Shekhinah that comes down here below when we subjugate and sublimate the Klippa, because it's the darkness itself that's giving forth the light. And this is the Rebbe says, parenthetically, last line on the page, Bedugma se'ili de tshuva legabe avoidus hatzadikim. This is similar to the advantage of tshuva over the avoid of tzadikim that it's understood. The same idea, that the Baal Tshuva takes the negative and turns it into positive. So therefore, we say in the place where Baal Tshuva stands, even tzadikim geburim cannot stand. Where do we see this idea? That through sublimating the Klippa, we get a very high level of light. So he says on the top of the next page, like the statement of the Zohar, when the Sitra Achra becomes subjugated, the glory of Hashem ascends in all the worlds, Through the avoida of sublimating the klippa and transforming the klippa comes down a much higher revelation of light. The manner of its revelation is in a way of being exalted and higher. That's why it's called ascend. The Zohar says that when we sublimate the klippa, doesn't say nimshach. It says it will ascend in all the worlds. Why does it use the term ascend? To indicate that this oir is so powerful and so transcendent that even though it's coming to us, but it's in a transcendent and above and aloof type of state. That's the reason also why the beginning of the making of the Mishkan is in the idea of the boards, the beams that form the walls all around the Mishkan. Even though the final aspect of the Mishkan were the hides that were put on top, made from the different animal skins, but the before you can have that, you had to put those boards, those beams all around that made up the walls of the Mishkan. What's the significance of the boards and beams? The keresh u'oisius sheker. The word keresh is the same letters like the word falsehood. It's a different combination of letters. In other words, it's the same letters, but put it together in a different combination. Sheker and keresh. Acher daika, he says acher, specifically acher, hepechin and echad. The Chazal speak about how the word acher is the opposite of echad. You shouldn't have another God. That's the opposite of the unity and the oneness of Hashem. So when you say keresh with a tzir of acher being other, that means because sheker is other of kedusha, like sitra achra, the other side. And the avoida is basisas akrashim lamishkan atzi shittim ma'im. We shall make the boards and beams to the Mishkan standing shittim wood. The truth is, you could have made the boards for the Mishkan piled up one on top of each other, like a log cabin or something similar to that. But instead, all the beams were standing upright. What's the idea behind it? To transform the falsehood of the world to be a board and beam for the Mishkan. And we're transforming the falsehood of the opposite side to the foolishness, the folly, the silliness of Klippa to folly and super rational type of avoid of kedusha. That's the idea of atze shittim. The word shittim is from the word shtus, which is folly. And there's folly that Friedrich Rebbe speaks about in the negative, and then there's folly, which means the super rational avoid of kedusha. Through this transformation of the negative into the positive, which is the keresh and the shittim and so on, so it becomes the drawing down the primary shchina down here below, in a higher way than it was at the beginning of creation. And the Friedrich Rebbe continues in the Maimer, for this reason, Yidden are called the hosts of Yud Kei Vav Kei. At the end of this week's parsha, when it talks about when Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, it says, like it says, it was in the midst of this day, of the 15th of Nisan, all the hosts of Hashem went out, the army of Hashem, the hosts of Hashem went out from the land of Mitzrayim. So the Rebbe says, what's the connection between it? Here the Rebbe is commenting on another part of Friedrich Rebbe's Maimer, even though it's not yet Ois Yudalet. So he says, and we could explain the connection of the topics between what we were talking about before, about Ikishkin and Betachtoinim, and that takes place through a transforming of the darkness, and then it's a higher level, and with the topic that Yidden are called Tzivus Hashem when they went out of Mitzrayim. The fact that Yidden do not get excited and affected by and influenced by the darkness and the falsehood of the world. And not only are they not affected by it, but adrabah, just the opposite. They transform it to holiness. How does one take on the darkness and transform it? Through the avoid of self-sacrifice and accepting the yoke of heaven. And therefore they're called an army, lashon chaya, from the word army, a soldier. That's also the connection between the title of Tzivus Havaya with going on in Mitzrayim. Because this name, this description of the army of Hashem, Nitan Yisrael Mitzrayim was specifically given to the Yidden at what point? When they left Mitzrayim. Beforehand they weren't called by this title Tzivus Havaya. Avoid the begols Mitzrayim, because the avoid in the goals of Mitzrayim, Valderach, the Bechola Gol Yishnikrai Mitzrayim. Similarly, the avoid in all the exiles that are also called by the name Mitzrayim. Why are all the exiles called Mitzrayim? Al Shem Shem Mitziris Li Yisrael. Mitzrayim is from the word making uncomfortable. They're oppressing the Yidden. They machen eng Yiddishkeit and Yidden. They make uncomfortable and difficult Yiddishkeit and Jews. He ba'oifen is in such a manner. How is the avoid in Golus? It's in such a manner. The Kabbalah's oilam Mesiras Nefesh Dafka, specifically through accepting the yoke of heaven and self-sacrifice. That's why they're called an army, because that's the idea of an army. An army does what it's told. There's no questioning orders. It's Kabbalah's oil. And it's also in a way of self-sacrifice, ready and willing to do anything for what the mission has to be taken care of. Mamshech Levai, and the Frierdiker Rebbe continues to explain this Maimer Mash Yisrael Nikru B'Shem Tzivus Havai, that Yidden are called the army of Hashem. Shari Ein Ze Shem Tzvakis Shu Shem Kodesh Meshiva Shem Shem Nimchakim. Over here, where Yidden are called Tzivus Havai, that's not the name Tzvakis. That's one of the 7 holy names that Al Pi Allah you're not allowed to erase. Just like you can't erase the name Elokim, the name Yudke Vavke, the name Adnai, you cannot erase Shem Tzvakos. But when the Yidden are called Tzivus Havaya, that's not the same name. The Shem Zeh, the name of Tzvakos, Nizgalai de Anavim, was only revealed by Nevi'im, by Shiras Chana, where she thanked Hashem for all the for their kindness to her and giving her a son like Shmuel and so on. Al B'Torah le'niskar Shem Tzvakos, but in the Chamisha Chumshi Torah, before Navi, the name Tzvakos of Hashem, relating to Hashem and talking about Hashem, is not mentioned. V'niskar Tzivus Havaya, all that's mentioned is the host of Havaya. It's not a descriptive name like a name of a person. It's not like the name Havaya Tzvakos that these are names of Hashem. Rather, the word Tzivus Havaya, so the word Tzivos is something that is ancillary to and connected to Shem Havaya, showing that they are close and connected to and auxiliary to Shem Havaya. What does that mean in the spiritual sense? What's the Tzivus Havaya that the Yidden are doing? Yidden brought up a host, an army, a big deluge, a big amount of things to Havaya. They refined the sparks and they brought them up to Yud Ke Vav Ke. So that is the avodah of the Yidden in Golus, to elevate these sparks. Line 12. The idea behind this is the Hine avoid the Beretz Mitzrayim Milevarer or Lahalos Naretzoitis Shem Mitzrayim Eretz Haaretz. The avoid in the land of Mitzrayim is to refine and elevate the sparks in Mitzrayim, the most immoral place on the earth. Initially, these sparks was in a total state of concealment and totally covered. We know the root of all concealments and all coverings of godliness is from the name Elokim. Elokim is also the numerical equivalent Aleph Lamed Hey Yud Mem of Gematria Hateva of the word the nature, meaning that nature, by its very nature, pardon the double term, covers over on godliness. But one second, the word Elokim, it means godliness. It's from the same expression. How do you say that Elokim is the source of concealment? It's only the numerical equivalent of Elokim is the nature. It's not that Elokim itself is nature. The godly aspect of it is in the state of revelation, as opposed to the state of nature that's concealed. This is a constant concept of Chassidus that people don't realize. That when we're dealing with Gematria means that it's something that's concealed. It's not evident. Just like when you read any word and there's something hinted in the Gematria, that means it's not something open and clear and explicit. So the fact that nature is in a Gematria, that means that it's not yet the true, or it's not yet the explicit idea, which means that the explicit idea of Shem Elokim is godliness, but there's hidden inside of it the idea of nature. So how does this relate to what we're saying? So he says in line 21, Mikal Makim still in all. Elokim is the root and the source for nature. The idea of Shem Elokim, how is it a root and source for Teva? Because the godly light of Shem Elokim comes down in multiple constrictions, concealments, and coverings to a very great degree, until it's completely concealed. Shezeu inyan ha-teva. That is the idea of nature. Teva is also related to the word drowned or sinks in. Meloshen tuba b'yamsuf. We say in Oz Yosher that Mitzrayim drowned in the sea. So nature means that the godly light is drowned in it. It's submerged in it. That the godly light that's coming from Shem Elokim is drowned, is sunken in, is submerged in a great concealment and covering. Like it's explained that the continuation of Mamorim of the Frierdiker Rebbe, chapter 13. Through the avodah of those that are the army of Avaya, bittul the Kabbalah's oil, by having the bittul like an army has, just accepting the yoke of heaven, tzvois maloshen chayil, tzvois from the word army, from the expression of an army. Mizborerim hanitzoitzes, the sparks become refined. Misalim likdusha, and they ascend to holiness. This means to say, they leave behind the ultimate concealment, and they become part of the revelation of Shem Yudke Vavke. Therefore, it's called Tzivos Havaya, like we said before, that the word Tzivos is ancillary to sublimated to the Shem Havaya, because you're taking the sparks and you're elevating it. And what's Havaya? Havaya is not like Elokim, that Elokim eventually becomes submerged in nature, but Havaya is Shalamayla Matava, it's beyond nature. Say that Avodah, the order of the Avodah is Shagam Kasher Nimtzoim Badaim B'chosh Chagolos, even when we find ourselves still in the darkness of Golos, in Ilchol B'nei Yisrael Hoyer Mishvoisam, to all the Jewish children, all the Jewish people, was light in their settlements. It doesn't only mean in their 4 cubits, in their domain, that's where they had light. Rather, any place where a Jewish person entered, even in an Egyptian's house. The light entered with him and illuminated for him whatever the Egyptian hid in the barrels and the boxes and other concealed areas. The fact that during Machas Choshech it was in such a way that they were able to see everything that was concealed, everything that was hidden. So through that was a preparation that afterwards they were able to empty out Mitzrayim, because they were able to know where exactly the hidden things were. And when they started asking the Egyptians for items to borrow, and then the Egyptians would deny it, so the Eden said, no, you have it there, in that particular shelf, in that particular closet. Birur called Mitzrayim that the purpose of emptying out Mitzrayim was not for the gold and silver themselves, but to refine the sparks that were all the sparks that were there in Mitzrayim. Following that emptying out of Mitzrayim that took place when the Yidden left on the 15th of Nisan, there was a further stage of elevation of the sparks. Gam business Hayam Shoyse Gedol in business Mitzrayim. There was also the loot and the booty that they had at the sea. That was even greater than the loot that was in Mitzrayim. So, in other words, V'hainu, this means those sparks that was not in the capability of Yidden to refine earlier. Why was it? Because the sparks were in a total state of concealment. They were even more concealed than those sparks that were in the hiding places of the Egyptians that were revealed through the light when the Yidden had the light enter with them during the Makas Choshech. In Tzotzis Elu, these sparks that were at the sea, Heviyam Hapari Atzmai, Pari himself ensured to bring them along. He made sure that when they went to the sea, the Medrash says, he made sure that all the bizas hayam should come to the sea, not to leave it at home. And why did he do so? Because these sparks had to be elevated. So the Yidden should be able to refine them with the loot that they got at the sea. All this was a preparation for the giving of the Torah, like it says, Vayasam Moshe Yisrael miyamsuf, that Moshe made the Yidden travel from the Yamsuf. What was this idea that he made them travel from the Yamsuf? So it says, he made them go from the loot at the sea to the giving of the Torah. That's a general avodah of the army of Hashem, legalis, levadar, lahalis, and the tzoytzes shoyv to reveal and to refine and to elevate those sparks that were in the total concealment. Through that comes about a home for Hashem down below. Literally in the ultimate level down below. Like the language used by the Alter Rebbe, but in such a low level that there's nothing, nothing lower than that. Now he's going to get to the 14th chapter in the Frierdiker Rebbe's Hemshech of Mamorim. Oizdal. Lahavina Indian developed to understand the idea. Though the light is submerged in a very great covering and concealment, Mikol Malkim still in all, through the avodah it comes out to be revealed. And concerning this, the one whose yahrzeit it is explains in the chapter, the 14th chapter. The 14th chapter is the one that corresponds according to the system that the Rebbe was doing every single year in the Basi Leganis. So it's the one that we're learning this year. It's the second cycle of the 14th, the 14th Pedic and learning Basi Legani, which Keflaim Tashir, the Rebbe says it's double for strength. He says, despite that it's so concealed, still in all, it says you give life to all. That the ray of the godly light it's drawn down to bring into being and to give life to all the creations from nothing to something. Like it's brought down the Geras HaKodesh, chapter 20. A ray of his godly light is in all created beings, corresponding to the world of Bria, all formed beings corresponding to the world of Yitzira, and made beings corresponding to the creations of the world of Asiya. This is the godly light and life force that's drawn down in all creations. That Hashem's light shines and is drawn down even in the lowest levels, even in the all possibility of how low it is, even however low it may be, the most lowest of the low, it's still there, the godly life force. That's what it means, va'ata machayas kulam, that you give life to all of them. One second. Just my page turned over here. He says, like it says in the pasuk, im esak shamayim sham atom, if I will stretch out the heavens, over there you are found, v'atzia shoyli neko, and I will also place something to the grave, or even Gehenna, there you are. Shenimshach b'chol seder ishtalshos madrega l'madrega, that Hashem comes down in the whole chain order of descent from one level to another level, ad madregas bruim hayoser shvolim, until he comes down to the lowest, most creatures. And it's the capability of every single person. Even the most ordinary, unlearned person could know this. Ad kan l'shoynei. Up till here is the quote of the previous Rebbe's quote from chapter 14. This means to say, in the 13th chapter of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Hemshech, it's explained how the light comes down in multiple constrictions and concealments and coverings. And in the 14th chapter, it's explained the total opposite extreme, how the light is drawn down and shines in every place, in every area of the creation, and in every place that it comes down, and even in the lowest most place, it's still revealed over there, like it's emphasized in the pasuk that's brought at the beginning of the Pedic, and you give life to all. The word ata, va'ata daika, specifically ata, not Hashem mechayes kulam, Elokim mechayes kulam. Ata is like moidani lefanecha. It's talking second person. It's direct. It's like Baruch Ata Hashem. We are addressing Hashem directly. Shu lashon noichach. Lashon noichach is second person, direct, right in front of me. Hainu shachayis alakisha b'kol nivroim ubegil likol kachat shoymer love Ata lashon noichach. The godly life force in all creations is so revealed till we could say about it Ata in a way that it's like right in front of me. Like the Frierdiker Rebbe also explains in that Maimer, the godly light that comes down to create the worlds does not, that even though it is bringing the worlds into being, giving life and vitality to the worlds, it is not affected by the world, chas v'sholom. It's not changed in the process of being involved. Usually, when we are doing something, we are being mashpia, we are teaching, we are speaking, it changes us somehow. It's different when we are at rest, before we are speaking, to when we are speaking, to after we are done, and so on. But the godly light is in such a way, it comes down, and no change has been affected in the light or in the Hashem that emanates that light. The fact that we do find sometimes reference to some type of change in the light through becoming enclosed, so it's a different level than what we're talking about now. It's a level that's called koyach. The fact that being enclosed and invested in something affects a particular type of change. It's only in the life force and vitality that's in a state of power. It's in the way of koyach. There are different things Chassidus speaks about. There's oir and koyach, he's going to explain soon. Oir is like light. Light just spreads out, doesn't care what, when, the source where it's coming from, doesn't matter to it anything. Koyach is like an energy that I, let's say, expend in teaching, for example, or in speaking. That koyach is something that becomes affected and used up and tires me out and can be at rest and can be functioning. That's already different. So in Alakus, there's also a level of oir versus a level of koyach. So he says, line 27, but the light that gives life force from Hashem, ein b'shum shinui v'yispilus klal. There's no change, and has no effect in it whatsoever. And the Rebbe is going to elaborate upon this idea. This will be understood according to what is known concerning the three expressions that we find concerning vitality and life and energy, that we use the word oir, light, we use chayis, which means vitality, and then we use koyach, a power. Which is Admor Azokim Betanya. The Rebbe writes in Tanya, the sholish l'shoinus elu, that these three expressions, hem sholish madregas, these are three levels. Kfish mevar kvoid kedushas Admor Hamtzoi Imre Bina, like the Mittler Rebbe explains in the Sefer Imre Bina. By the way, the Rebbe in the Basel Legani Mamorim would quote all the Rebbeim, all the way up to the Baal Shem Tov, and the later years he would also quote something from his father as well, from Reb Leivik. So the Mittler Rebbe says in the Sefer called Imre Bina, and the Rebbe Rashab also says this in the Hemshech of Tafresh Ayin Beis, the koyach hu nivdol memkoydei, that koyach is something that is separated from its source. V'lachein hu b'bechinas helam, therefore it's in a way of concealment. What this means is as follows. If I am to take, let's say, something, I can throw an object. I can take a ball and throw the ball. Energy from my body, a koyach left my body, and is now encircling and encompassing the ball and makes it move against the rules of nature, against the rules of gravity. That instead of the ball falling to the ground, it keeps on moving. Now this energy left my body, and its connection is concealed. We don't see this energy openly. That's what it means that koyach is separated from its source, and that's why it's concealed. Line 4, Mashenkin or v'gam chayis im dvukim b'mkoyram. Light comes from a light source. The light that's coming from the light source is always connected to the light source. It's as soon as you disconnect it, there's no light. Even chayis, when my neshama gives chayis to my body, So that chayis needs to be connected to my neshama. My hand cannot be alive if the vitality, the chayis, the life force that's in my hand is not connected to my soul itself. So both chayis and oir, as opposed to koyach, which like leaves the body, the chayis and the oir is something that's connected and cleaving to its source. Therefore, both the light and chayis is something that's revealed. So what's the difference in oir and chayis? So oir, light, is in a way that's transcendent, and it's not enclosed. It's like light that shines from the sun, for example, or from any other light source. It just shines. It doesn't have any consideration and no interest in where it's shining to, how it's being received. It's transcendent. That's what's called makif. It's completely unrelated to the item that it's shining upon. The vitality and life force of, let's say, that animates my hand, that gives life to my hand, that makes my hand move, that makes my hand right, that comes internalized into my hand. And my hand has to be a healthy hand. My hand has to be working, the muscles, the nerves, etc., for the chayis to come down over there. If there's something chas v'shalom wrong with the hand, the chayis won't be in the hand. The chayis won't be able to manipulate the hand. The chayis won't be able to move the hand. Because chayis is pnimi. It becomes internalized. Oir is makif, transcendent. It doesn't care where it shines. Nothing has to be ready for it. It just shines in a garbage dump or in a beautiful palace. It's all the same. Now the question is, why is chayis, which is revealed, and oir, which is revealed? Why is there the difference that the oir is in a way that's makif, transcendent, and chayis is pnimi, that permeates? So it says, because the revelation and the cleaving that there is in the life force and vitality is not as powerful and not as great and not as overwhelming and transcendent like the revelation and the cleaving that's in light. Makes the distinction between oir v'chayis. Now he goes on and says, Mikol Mokim Eino Mishtana, by Hashem, the life force that comes down, as opposed to by us, our energy and our life force does become changed. But by Hashem, the life force, Va'atam Machayis Kulam, you give life to everything, does not become changed. The Kiv Shagam HaChayis Ubchinas Gili V'Dvekis V'Mkoide. Since by Hashem the Chayis is also in a state of revelation, and it's also cleaving to its source. Therefore, even when it becomes enclosed in the creations, it also doesn't become changed whatsoever. We'll stop over here.